Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Everybody who's at home and everybody who's here. We've got quite a nice bunch of people here. Well, they're nice people, but I mean quite a big bunch of people here this morning because some people were here for the EGM earlier and have kindly waited to take part in the service. So this morning we're going to start on page 117 with Shabbat morning service number 3. Say thank you to Rebecca for playing piano with me this morning, and we haven't really practiced together, so it might go slightly astray.
And I have no idea what key I need to go as well, so you're going to hear some of your
and she plays different keys with Renee and different keys with Dominique, so it's a big
so it's a sort of some
challenge.
jazz-inspired experimentation in the harmony line today.
The congregation will sit, says the prayer book. We thank you, O God, for this new day, for morning sun and evening star, for flowering of tree and flowing of tide, for life-giving rains and cooling breezes, for the changing seasons, for the cycle of growth and decay of life and death. We awake and behold a new day. O God, renew us unto life. Teach us to recognize your presence in creation. Grateful for your gifts, may we dedicate all our powers to your service. So please join with me, whichever bits you want to join in. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, for eyes to see. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, for clothes to wear. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, for the joy of freedom. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, for the power to rise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, for providing for all our needs. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, for daily renewing our strength. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, for the blessing of sleep and the privilege of waking to a new day. We're on page 119. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, baruch hu. We praise you, our God, sovereign of the universe, worshipped by your people, lauded and glorified by those who love and serve you. With songs of praise we extol you and proclaim your sovereignty, sole source of the life of all worlds. We praise you, sovereign God, to whom all praise is due. Let's read together in English. With the coming of day and night, I will enter the covenant of God, and when evening and morning depart, I will recite God's decrees. God Most High, you are my righteousness. You teach me goodness. You are the fountain of knowledge, the dwelling place of holiness, and the summit of glory. Eternal might and majesty are yours. I will choose whatever you teach me, gladly accepting your judgments. As soon as I move my hands and feet, I will praise your name, when I go out and when I come in, when I lie down and when I rise up. When I rest on my bed, I will sing your praise, and in the company of my friends, I will praise you with the words of my mouth. The righteous shall flourish like the palm, grow tall like the cedar of Lebanon. Planted in the house of the Eternal One, they shall flourish in the courts of our God. They shall bear fruit in old age, proclaiming that God is just, in whom there is no flaw. Please stand if you'd like to. Yishtabach Shimcha La'ad, Malkeinu Ha'el HaMelech HaGadol VaHaKadosh V'Shamayim Uva'aretz. Ki Lacha Na'eh Adonai Eloheinu V'Elohei Avotenu. Shir Ushvacha, Halel V'Zimra, Barachot V'Hodaot, Me'ata V'ad Olam. Baruch Ata Adonai, Habocher B'Shirei Zimra. So now we're going to turn to page 135. I think you can stay on your feet for the Baruch Hu, yeah. Feel free to sit down. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzei ha'or uvorei choshech, osei shalom uvorei et hakol, hama'er la'aretz u'ladarim alecha barachamim, uv'tuvo machadesh b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit. Ma rabu ma'asecha, Adonai kulam b'chochma asita, mal'ah ha'aretz kinyanecha. Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, va'al morei or she'asita, yafaruch hasela. Baruch atah Adonai, yotzei hamorot. Let's read together. Great is your love for us, eternal God, and abundant your compassion. Our ancestors trusted in you, and you taught them the laws of life. So be gracious to us and teach us. Incline our hearts to hear your words, to know and understand, to learn and teach, and with love to uphold the truths of your Torah. Enlighten us with your teaching. Make us faithful to your commandments and wholehearted in the love and awe of your name. For in love you summon us to serve you and proclaim your unity. We praise your God. In love you have called your people Israel to serve you. Now we're on to the Shema on page 137. Please stand or sit as you like. Et Adonai Elohecha, v'chol levavecha, u'v'chol nafshecha, u'v'chol ma'adecha, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi mitzavacha hayom, al levavecha, v'shinantom levanecha, v'dibarata bam, v'shiftecha b'veitecha, v'v'lechtecha v'aderech, v'v'shachbecha u'v'kumecha, v'kasharatom adita. V'hayu l'tod fot beinenecha, v'katavtom al mezuzot beitecha, v'visharecha. Please sit. Leman tizkaru, v'asitem et kol mitzvotai, v'yitem kadoshim le'lachechem. Ani Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, liot lachem Elohim. Ani Adonai Elohechem. Good and beautiful and true, sound, established and enduring are these words, now and forever. True it is, Eternal One, that you are our sovereign God and Redeemer, as you were the God and Redeemer of our ancestors. You are our Maker, the rock of our salvation. We have known you always as our helper and our liberator. There is no God but you. Truly you are first and you are last. We have no Redeemer but you. You redeemed us from Egypt and freed us from the house of bondage. Then, with great joy, Moses, Miriam, and all Israel together sang to you this song. שירה חדשה, שבחו גאולים, לשמך על שפת הים. יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. To ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, גואלנו אדוני, צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל, גאל ישראל, ישראל. Please stand for the Amidah on page 140. Carry on. Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Hasdei Avot v'Imahot, מביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומשיח מגן, ברוך אתה מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מיטיב אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מזריח השמש ומוריד הטל. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סולח נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך. קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך על הארץ Kavodo Male Olam. Baruch Kavod Adonai Mimkomo. Mimkomcha Malkeinu Tofea V'timloch Aleinu Ki Machakim Anachnu Lach. Yimloch Adonai Leolam Elohai Tzion Lador Vador. Hallelujah. Lador Please sit down. As you say, I don't know what repeats Rebecca's going to do, but never mind. Thank you, everybody. We're on page 142. You inspired our ancestors to hallow this day for your service. When upon its coming we pause to contemplate our life, we learn anew that we do not live by bread alone, but also by the spiritual nourishment we receive when we open ourselves to your influence. We thank you for the Sabbath day and for the opportunity it offers to enhance the quality of our lives. We thank you for its joy and for its peace. May our worship help us to take into our hearts its message of holiness and consecrate all our days by devotion to what is true, beautiful, and good. Let's read together. Our God and God of our ancestors, may our rest on this day be pleasing in your sight. Sanctify us by your commandments and make us loyal to your teaching. Satisfy us with your goodness Gladden us with your salvation and purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Eternal One, let the holiness of your Sabbath enter our hearts, and may all Israel who hallow your name be exalted by its peace. We praise you, O God, for the holiness of the Sabbath. Ratzeh Adonai Eloheinu ba'amcha Yisrael, u'tefilatam ba'ahava tekabel, u'tehi l'ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadecha v'yira na'avod. We give thanks that you, Eternal One, are our God, as you are the God of our ancestors. You are the rock of our life, the power that shields us in every age. We thank and praise you for our lives, which are in your hand, for our souls, which are in your keeping, for the signs of your presence we encounter every day, and for your wondrous gifts at all times, morning, noon, and night. God, source of goodness, to whom our thanks are due. And now it's Sim Shalom at the bottom of page 144. Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom, Sim Shalom. Adonai, Osei HaShalom. Please sit. Oh, nobody's standing. So let's take some moments from silent prayer. I'm just going to go and get myself a talit. Yehayu l'ratzon imrefi, v'he Adonai tzuri v'goali. Right, we now move on to the Torah service. I'm not going to get a scroll out because I don't know how to find the place, so I'm going to read from the Chumash. And today's portion is Genesis 32, verses 22 to 31. And it's a very famous story about Jacob wrestling. And when you go home, or when your service is finished if you are at home, if you Google Jacob wrestling with images, you'll see a lot of amazing paintings, because this has inspired artists throughout the ages to paint remarkable paintings of this moment in the Torah, one of the most famous and inspiring and enigmatic, as we will discover, stories. And so just before I start, I want to kind of set the scene, just to remind everybody of the story so far. So this is about Jacob, of course, who appeared in the Amidah, as you noted, one of our forefathers, but actually he's not the nicest person. And, or as something I was reading said, morally ambiguous. Because as a young man, he did a couple of quite unpleasant things, if you recall the stories. First of all, there's this phrase about sold his birthright for a mess of pottage. You know that phrase in the English language. Jacob was a twin with Esau, of course, and Jacob was making this delicious pottage or soup, and Esau was desperate for some, and Jacob said, "You're only having it if you sell me your birthright, if you give me a birthright." Well, okay, more for Esau for doing it, but one could say that Esau was maybe not the brightest person, and that Jacob took advantage of him, because he literally, Esau was the older twin, so he had these birthrights as the older twin. So that was the one thing. And then, of course, the other famous thing, with the connivance of his mum, he deceived his father into giving him the blessing that should have been given to the older son. If you remember, he put goat skin on his arms because his father was nearly blind, and when he touched him, it would feel hairy. So this wasn't really, the nicest things to do. And Esau vowed revenge on Jacob, who fled and remained in exile for 20 years. And we won't go into the whole thing about his wives. But then God directs Jacob to return to his ancestral home and confront his brother again. And so the bit where we're reading is just as he's on his way home and wandering with his family and his flocks and so on, and he kind of sends them ahead. And so he's left on his own because he's sent all the servants and the flocks and the wives ahead. But he has been warned that Esau is coming with a force of 400 men to meet him in the morning. And so this is where Jacob is on his own, thinking about what might happen, and meets somebody whom the Torah calls Ish, a man. Okay, so we'll come back to what it's all about. And now I'm going to do the brachot, and then I'm going to read the Torah portion. We are on page 482. Baruch hu et Adonai hamavorach, Baruch Adonai hamavorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch Adonai hamavorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, Asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'Torah. Put my magnifying glass. So I'm going to read the Hebrew first and then the translation, starting at verse 22. ויקם בלילה הוא ויקח את שתי נשיו ואת שתי שפחותיו ואת 11 ילדיו ויעבור את מעבר יבוק. ויקהם ויעברם את הנחל ויעבר את אשר לו. ויוותר יעקב לבדו, ויאבק איש עמו עד עלות השחר. וירא כי לא יכול לו, ויגע בכף ירחו, ותקע כף ירך יעקב, ויהבקו עמו. ויאמר שלחני כי עלה השחר, ויאמר לא, אשלחך כי אם ברכתני. ויאמר אליו מה שמך? ויאמר יעקב. ויאמר לא יעקב, יאמר עוד שמך, כי אם ישראל, כי שרית עם אלוהים ועם אנשים ותוכל. וישאל יעקב, ויאמר, הגידה נא שמך, ויאמר למה זה תשאל לשמי, ויברך אותו שם. ויקרא יעקב שם המקום פניאל, כי ראיתי אלוהים פנים אל פנים, ותנצל נפשי. ויזרח לו השמש כאשר עבר את פנואל, והוא צולע על ירחו. That same night he arose, took his wives, the 2 maidservants, and his 11 sons, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok stream. He took them and sent them across the stream with everything that belonged to him. But Jacob himself remained behind, all alone. A man wrestled with him until daybreak. When he saw that he could not overcome him, he touched the socket of Jacob's thigh, so that Jacob's hip was dislocated as they wrestled. Then the man said, "Let me go, it's dawn." But Jacob replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Then he asked Jacob, "What's your name?" And he answered, "Jacob." The man said, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you strove with God and with men and prevailed." Jacob asked, "What's your name?" He answered, "Why do you ask my name?" But he blessed him there. So Jacob named the place Peniel, meaning, "I have seen a divine being face to face, and yet my life is spared." The sun rose as Jacob passed through Peniel, limping because of his hip. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Okay, so instead of reading a Haftarah this week, I'm going to talk a bit with you more about Jacob and the man, because it's quite interesting stuff. And so this is a kind of combined Haftarah and sermon and Dvar Torah, not doing lots of different bits. So, who was the man? There's a few different, many different interpretations. As we know, there's many rabbis, and they've given many different interpretations. So the rabbis of old, this is according to, I read this on Chabad, so this is really holy. The rabbis of old thought that this man was the ministering angel of Esau. In the old days, in the Talmud and in that kind of literature of that period, they believed that every nation and had their own angel, their own ministering angel, who represents their interests before God. And they thought, therefore, that this was Esau's angel who'd come to frustrate Jacob's mission by fighting with him first to make him weaker before he got to actually meet Esau. And there was also the idea that these ministering angels are part of a choir, and they sing in the morning. You'll remember the man wanted to go at daybreak. Did he have to go off and be singing with his choir mates? So, as dawn breaks, Esau's angel must join his colleagues to sing to their creator. The angel tries to disentangle himself from Jacob, but cannot do so. He's forced to beg Jacob to let him go, to which Jacob agrees, but only on one condition. The angel must bless him, and in effect admit that the blessings Jacob received from Isaac were indeed rightly his and not Esau's. The angel does agree and blesses Jacob, and even gives him a new name, Israel. And among the meanings of that is that Jacob has received the blessings in a noble manner rather than by fraud. So that's kind of one interpretation, that it was all to do with Esau's angel. So now I'm going to share with you another one, which is from a rabbi called Dan Moskowitz, who's chair of the Reform Rabbis of Canada. Louisa's here, so she's probably, you know him, I'm sure. Okay. And he's got something interesting to say. In this week's parashah, once again, we encounter Jacob and Esau, brothers who share a most painful past and separation. This week, they are to be reunited. It's a moment fraught with tension and uncertainty. Will Esau greet his brother with open arms, or will he harbour a grudge for Jacob's youthful trickery? Esau has 400 men travelling with him. Will a war erupt? Jacob, for his part, wrestles with God and his own destiny. What does God want from him? How should he protect and enlarge the sacred relationship with God that he has inherited from his father? Must he vanquish Esau to prove his worthiness as a leader of the Jewish people? How should he apologize to someone he hurt so deeply? Can he ever be forgiven? At times in our lives, we have each been Jacob, and other times we have been Esau. We have been the victim and the advantage taker. We have stood as Jacob does on the river's edge between our present circumstance and confronting the reality of our past. What does Jacob do? Does Jacob run and hide? Does he cross the river? With literary brilliance and intrigue, the Torah builds the suspense as Jacob ponders what to do overnight. He sends his family and all of his possessions across the river to Esau's side, and he is left alone on his shore. He lays down to sleep, but sleep eludes him. He tosses and turns and wrestles with an angel, or, as some say, grapples with himself. The angel is strong and nearly prevails over him, pulling at Jacob's leg, badly wounding him. But Jacob summons an inner strength and courage. He holds on to the angel, overpowers him, and demands from him a blessing. The angel changes Jacob's name to Yisrael, meaning the one who struggles with God. This experience, or perhaps it was a dream, gives Jacob the courage and conviction to confront his brother. Jacob is now a changed man. He's not the young boy who bargained for his brother's birthright over a bowl of soup. He's not the adolescent who stole his brother's blessing with trickery. He is now Yisrael, a man who knows his own flaws and limitations, a man who bears the scars and burdens of his past and allows them to inform his present perspective. Jacob is humble and pragmatic. He limps towards his brother, and with repentance and humility, he asks his brother's forgiveness. Esau rushes toward Jacob, and we don't know if Esau is planning to attack him. But Esau knows. He senses that his brother is a changed man, and the Torah relates that he falls on his brother's neck and kisses him. This portion teaches that in order to change, we have first to know what we're changing from. We have to know ourselves to be able to confront what may be ugly or painful or shameful within us. But self-knowledge alone is not change. Jacob could be self-aware and still not cross over the river. We need to take the next step and deal with our failings. We need to cross the river and confront them. We have to be Israel, to struggle with our faults and risk experiencing more pain in the process. Because life is not lived on this side of the river. It's not lived running and hiding from the wreckage of our past. Life is on the other side. What does Jacob do after Esau kisses him? Jacob builds a house. He's done running and has nothing else to escape from. He's found himself, and therefore he's found his home. He's finally found peace. He sets down roots and builds for a future that he could not have imagined a while ago. So that's a completely different take, that it's all about his internal and not an angel. And if you can bear another couple of minutes of this, lots of people have written poems about this. Actually, probably the most famous poem is by John Wesley, who you probably know is a famous English hymn writer from the 18th century, but I'm not going to read that one because it's a very Christian interpretation of who the angel was, and it probably wouldn't be appropriate for me to read it. But I found two other poems by modern poets, which I'm going to read you now. One is called Jacob Wrestles with the Angel by somebody called Malcolm Gweet. I dare not face my brother in the morning. I dare not look upon the things I've done. Dare not ignore a nightmare's dreadful warning. Dare not endure the rising of the sun. My family, my goods are sent before me. I cannot sleep on this strange river shore. I have betrayed the son of one who bore me, and my own soul rejects me to the core. But in the desert darkness one has found me. Embracing me, he will not let me go, nor will I let him go whose arms surround me, until he tells me all I need to know, and blesses me where daybreak stakes its claim, with love that wounds and heals, and with his name. So that's a nice one. And the final poem is called Wrestling by somebody called Dave Hopwood, who is also a Christian, but it's a kind of more general interpretation. Jacob was alone by the river Jabbok. It was growing dark, as a man stepped from the shadows and wrestled with him until daybreak. We may often find ourselves alone by our own river Jabboks, struggling to win through, fighting to keep going, wrestling with our fears, with our doubts and uncertainties, with our questions and lack of answers, with our past and our future. In the lonely places on the paths of shadows, in the times when we have nothing to distract us from ourselves, wrestling to be the people we wish we could be, wrestling with the realities, with the lack of splendour in everyday life. Jacob wrestled until daybreak, and as the wrestling went on, he realised he was struggling with God, the God who was doing his best to bring change. Jacob walked away with a limp and a brand new name. He had become one who wrestles, and to this day, the wrestling goes on. So now we're going to move on to our concluding prayers. So if you'd like to turn to page 520, and please stand if you would like to. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, אשר שם חלקנו לאחד את שמו, וגור עלינו להמליך מלכותו. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגופי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו עינות, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא אלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת עינו. Let's read together. Trusting in you, eternal God, we hope soon to behold the glory of your might, when false gods will vanish from our hearts and idolatry cease forever. Help us to perfect the world by bringing it under your unchallenged rule, when all will invoke your name, relinquish evil and turn to you alone. May all who dwell on earth come to know that to you every knee must bend and every tongue swear loyalty. Before you let them humble themselves, and to your glorious name let them give honour. Let all submit to your sovereign rule. May that time come soon and last forever. For ultimate sovereignty is yours, and to all eternity you will reign in glory. As it is written, the Eternal One shall reign forever. And it has been said, the Eternal God shall rule over all the earth. On that day the Eternal God shall be one and known to be one. If you'd just like to sit down for a moment, I realise I haven't said hello to people who are out there in the world, so I'm just going to see if by any chance I can... No, because I'm going to try for just a moment to see if I can get this, but I don't think I can. Well, I'm sorry because I can't seem to find the live stream.
I can give you some names if you want.
Oh, you can give me some names, brilliant.
So we've got Sarah Alston. I hope you're feeling okay, Sarah. Shabbat Shalom. We've got Naomi. Shabbat Shalom. Seymour and Liz. Julie. Helen. Deborah. Anna. Sandra. Phil. Michelle. Jackie. And someone called Kingston Liberal Synagogue is also watching. So Shabbat Shalom to you all.
Shabbat Shalom. Was that Sandra, as in Sandra and Paul?
Yes, Sandra Levin and Paul. Yes.
Okay, all right. Got a tune coming up for you for Adon Olam. Okay. So now I just want to make sure I've got my outside list, which I definitely have got somewhere. Yes, I do. We're on page 522. As we worship before you, O God, we think of those who once shared with us the joys and burdens of life and who are no longer in our midst. The sorrow of bereavement is softened by the bond of love which continues to unite us with our dear ones, and by our cherished memories of them, which we will always carry in our hearts. May all that was good in their lives remain with us as an influence for good. O God, grant consolation to those who are in sorrow and light to those in darkness. Teach us at all times to put our trust in you and to praise your name. And today we are remembering Irene Tihani, mother of Maria Rollin and Peter Tihani, Phyllis Manuel, mother of Carl Manuel, Eric Gilbert, husband of Sandra Gilbert, and Sue Picas, Mary Simmons's sister-in-law, who died this week. And we wish Mary and her family every condolence and a long life. And we're on page 524 for the Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, pagala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevorach leolam amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ah v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitada v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei t'kudasha b'rechu. La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nehemata. Damiram ba'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. V'al kol b'nei adam. V'imru amen. Please have a seat. I don't like saying be seated. Any announcements anybody's desperate to make here?
Mitzvah day tomorrow afternoon.
Oh yeah, Mitzvah Day tomorrow afternoon. There's 3 projects. If you're coming with me, I think, to the cemetery to do a bit of clearing and tidying, feel free to bring secateurs and trowels and things, but no power tools. Do people need to bring anything for the other projects?
No, but there'll be litter picking and making fat balls for birds. But I'm sure cake would not be turned away because there will be tea.
Oh, yeah. So litter picking, I guess you might need some plastic gloves.
Don't wear your best clothes for the
Don't wear your best clothes for any of these activities, but do come along.
And we are also going to be joined by our friends from the Dialogue Society. So there'll be an interfaith element as well. So that's really nice.
That's fantastic. Mitzvah Day projects are quite often interfaith because it's all about the Jewish community doing a mitzvah for others. We quite often do mitzvot in our own community, but that's really was the original idea of Mitzvah Day. Okay, so we're going to finish with Adon Olam. I just want Sandra and Paul to know that you won't complain about the tune this time, I believe. This is the first one I ever knew, so it's a very old-fashioned tune.
So call us.
Into your hand I place my soul. Asleep, awake, for you are near. And with my soul, my body too. You are my God, I shall not fear. Shabbat Shalom, everybody in the building, everybody on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter. Thank you very much, Rebecca, for the lovely music. And Kiddush, is that in the garden?
I have no idea.
Anybody know what's happening with... Are we offline, online, Craig?
Not yet. We're still on.
We're still on, I'll smile. We're just trying to find out the arrangements for Kiddush. Oh, I guess, because it's Beitenu as well, aren't they?